Hello and welcome to Book 14. Let's get I've got a screen in front of my face. You won't see it here, but I need to close that out so that I can see myself, because that's the only thing that makes making these talking heads worthwhile, is getting to look at myself. Book Xiv, as they, I guess that's the way to pronounce it, X-I-V, Book 14, begins with the Odysseus coming to the swineherd's courtyard. He was told by the shepherd, the nameless shepherd who was actually Athena in disguise, to visit the swineherd. So Odysseus is coming in at the lowest level, the lowest social level, and but he's going to see all levels of society in Ithaca, as well as he has seen the whole world. But remember what line 3 of of Book 1 says, that he has seen the cities of men, and he has seen the hearts of men. So he has the ability to see the whole world, but then also into the hearts of men. And so his business for the rest of the work is going to be to see who's loyal and who is not. And that's the function of this, the mythic type, the story type that we see in this part of the Odyssey. It's a tale type that is sometimes called the tale of the disguised king. When he goes in disguise and no one knows he's king, because the trouble with being king is that everybody treats you like a king. Okay, which some people like. Okay, but you can't really tell what's really in people's hearts if you show up as a king. Plus, remember, he is in disguise. He comes back not in the form of a king, but Athena has placed this mist on him, and so he is perceived as this dirty beggar. So that even the dogs are fooled. That's the first people we hear from in the courtyard. Let's look at that on line 29 and following. The yelping dogs sighted Odysseus suddenly and ran on him after him, barking. And Odysseus sat down in cunning, and his staff fell from his hand. Okay, sat down in cunning. The idea is that instead of bark at me, will you? Do you know who I am? He doesn't want to reveal himself, not even to the dogs. But the further irony, of course, of the dogs barking, and there are 3 distinct dog barking scenes in the next few books. This is the first of 3, and it strikes the audience, who knows that Odysseus is the king of Ithaca, and it strikes us as heavily ironic that the most powerful character in the story is, in fact, so lowly that even the dogs despise him. The swineherd rescues him from the dog, and the swineherd gets points in a couple of ways. First of all, simply as a human being, he gets points because he is following the pious model in terms of the laws of Xenia. He gives the proper homage, he gives the proper hospitality to a stranger, welcomes him in, but in the process of welcoming Odysseus as a stranger, he expresses a lament for the absence of his master. Okay, this is after 20 years. To find somebody still weeping for the, well, I guess he's not actually shedding tears, but to find somebody still upset about the loss of Odysseus shows an incredibly tenacious loyalty. Old man, says the swineherd, Eumaeus is his name. Old man, in a little while the dogs will suddenly have torn you to pieces if I had let them go, and you would have heaped reproach on me. To me also have the gods given other pains and griefs, as I groan and lament over my godlike master. Okay, so we know that he's a loyal guy. This is his curse for all of the The Trojans, would that the whole race of Helen had died on their knees, since she undid the knees of many men. Okay, perhaps what he means by the race of Helen is women. You know, it's all women's fault. It's all Helen's fault. As we saw in the previous book, though, it is it's atypical of Homer to. This is not Homer speaking. This is Eumaeus's point of view, but it's not the point of view of the work as a whole, because we saw a great deal of sympathy. Actually, it wasn't the previous book. It was actually only book 3, I think. So Eumaeus feeds Odysseus, and then there's more lament for this is, I'm giving you good food, but not as lavish as the feasts that they have in the palace. Those no good, rotten suitors, and there's a little bit of despair too. Again, Eumaeus praises his master Odysseus, but like Telemachus, he too expresses the belief that, by now he must be dead. My friend. Actually, this is in response. We can't read every bit of dialogue, but actually Odysseus says, "No, I think Odysseus is probably alive out there somewhere." And of course, he has special insight. He's right about that. But that just sounds too wishfully optimistic, and so Eumaeus says, "My friend, since you wholly deny it, you do not still think that man will come, and your heart is ever unbelieving, I shall still say it, not just that way, but with an oath." I'm sorry. I misrepresented who's speaking here. This is Odysseus speaking. Odysseus says, he'll come home. Don't worry, your master will come home. And Eumaeus says, no, that's unlikely now. It's after all these years. And so instead of just... that expression could have been perceived just as wishful thinking. But he says, no. It is an oath. Odysseus shall return. An absolutely positive statement. Let me have reward for good news right away when that man comes into these halls. Clothe me in a mantle and a tunic, lovely clothes. And of course, that's how you greet a returning king, too. So Odysseus is having fun with this disguise thing sometimes. It doesn't seem like a lot of it. It doesn't seem like he's had much fun at all over the past 20 years. There's something curious here. Nobody really knows the significance of this. There's been many guesses, but you may have noticed that Eumaeus is the only character in the Odyssey who is addressed in the second person. And you addressed him in this answer, swineherd Eumaeus. Old man, I shall not reward you for this good news, nor will Odysseus still come home. So he's adamant. He says that's not going to happen. Odysseus, for the second time now, tells his lying story. I'm a merchant from Crete. I lost my wife and I lost my fortune. But there again, notice that he is telling a falsehood, but it's not a falsehood. The details might be false, but the general story of he lost his wife, he lost his fortune, yes, he did both. He's about to reclaim his wife and his fortune. But even with the happily ever after, even with the happy ending of this epic, there's still irretrievable loss. So he tells about the Trojan War. He tells about the nostos, the homecoming of the soldiers. This is the way he uses the grain imagery to describe himself, what it's like to come home old. He says, nevertheless, if you look at the stubble, you can know what the grain was. Odysseus continues his false story. He embellishes it a little bit. He was shanghaied, taken to Phoenicia. But in the process, the reason he tells these stories about his world travels is that in those travels, when he was shanghaied to Phoenicia, which is, I suppose, better than being Phoeniciaized to Shanghai. I heard that Odysseus was on his way home. Okay, again, speaking of himself in the third person. Dr. Holmes never does that. I heard this. There I heard of Odysseus. That man said he had entertained and befriended him as he was going to his fatherland. Eumaeus doesn't believe a word of that, but he thanks him for the attempt at good news. So he gives one of the advantages of getting in good with the lowest echelon, the swineherd, is that, well, he is a swineherd. He herds the swine. So in fact, if you want the best pulled pork in Ithaca, right? Who would know where that is? That the swineherd, of course. So he gives the very best pig to Odysseus. Line 413. Bring the best swine so that I may slaughter it for the stranger from far away. And we too may enjoy it, who have long had sorrow as we labored for the swine with shining tusks. And other men do devour our hard work scot-free. Okay, so if those bozos over in the palace, those suitors, if they're going to enjoy the best swine, then we can too. A storm whips up. Homer has a great knack of closing out the sequences with significant events. Now, of course, attributing that to Homer is making a big assumption that he knows about these book divisions, which is highly unlikely, actually. According to the tradition of the scholiasts, the guys who keep the manuscripts and edit them and write the commentary. According to that tradition, the first century scholiast Aristarchus of Samothrace was the one who divided the Iliad and the Odyssey into the 24-book structure. But regardless of who did it, the transitions are brilliant because there's usually a kind of a crescendo. There's a kind of a sense of significance when we come to the end of one of the books, and at the end of book 14, it is the storm that arises, emphasizing the discomfort of Odysseus, his nakedness. Well, he's not literally naked now; he hasn't been since Nausicaa, but he doesn't have a mantle for the cold, and so. And this brings back a physical memory of the same situation on the battlefield at Troy, being out there without a cloak. Okay. So we'll pick up the story in our next exciting episode in book Ksiv. There's no vowel this time. We've just finished book Ksiv 14, so it's on to Ksiv 15, and we'll meet you there. Okay. We'll use the same books as the background. Okay. Maybe I'll comb my hair between now and then. Okay. Bless you, and we'll see you in book 15.